So for this meeting, I thought it would be good to maybe ask people to contribute files that were giving them troubles or that were needed, there was something they couldn't figure out about it or whatever. Uh, so as an alternative to my, preparing a series of or a specific topic, this is really sort of a kind of a troubleshooting exercise, I guess. Um, and on a couple of them, I had to do a little bit of research. So um, hopefully hopefully this will all work out. And if we have some time at the end, of course, if anybody who's here wants to share their screen and do show and tell and kind of present something that's got them stumped, we'll do our best to solve the problem for them or with them. So this first one is a pair of files, actually, this architectural file and this topo file. And these are files that are, the topo file is referenced to the architectural file. So if we look at the navigation menu and we get the references, you can see that there is a Vectorworks reference here. And that is the referenced file, and it lives over here on this topo reference layer. So there's two ways to reference external files in Vectorworks. There's the old way of doing it, which you would do through the organization menu and create a reference that way. But the way I think most people have been doing it for quite some time now is to go to the view menu and create a viewport that references the other file. So I'm just going to give myself a couple of loci here real quick. I'll put one here and I'll put one there, and then I'll just delete this reference. So I'll just kind of go through the process. So we'll just go to view and create a viewport. And if it's a viewport that's on a sheet layer, then it's going to reference the design layer onto the sheet layer. But in this case, we want a viewport that's on the design layer. So we'll go ahead and choose which design layer that viewport is going to appear on, in this case, the topo reference. And now it's looking, all of these drawing labels and all of that is grayed out. It's looking for an exterior file, an external file to reference to. So we'll select the source. It can either be a layer in the existing document or it can be another document. We'll just use the external document here. And since there's already a reference, we'll just use that. And we'll hit OK. And then we can define which layers get referenced. So obviously design layer 1 is just the default blank Vectorworks layer that's in there. It's probably not useful for us. And we'll hit OK. And then here you'll see that there are a variety, it's going to show you all the classes that are in the other project, or in the other file, excuse me. And you can see that there's this checkbox here, use current documents class visibilities. So I'll circle back to that. Right now, it's not going to be useful to select that, primarily because the reference document and the current document don't have the same class structure. So I'm going to hit OK. And I think I already chose the layer. Yep, I did. So I'll hit OK. And here it is. And actually, my loci were just didn't need those. It was already kind of in that position. So here in this document, if we look at the object info palette and look at that referenced viewport and we go to classes, again, we'll see all of these classes here, right? And if I go to the active document and show its classes, maybe through the navigation menu or palette or the organization, whichever, you see that I have very different classes over here. I mean, there's a notes and a none and a dimension class, but everything else is different. So that being the case, I can't rely on the current document's class visibilities to control the class visibilities of this viewport. So the only way to control those class visibilities are right here through the classes menu of the viewport, or the classes button of the viewport in the object info palette. So back to the architectural layer, or the sheet layer, right? The question from the user, and the place where they were stumped, is that they didn't want to see all of this information from the survey, the topo file, on their presentation drawing. And I don't know specifically what they didn't want to see, but so then the question was, well, how do I control those visibilities from the viewport? Well, from the viewport, if I go to classes for the viewport that's in the sheet layer, you'll see that all of the classes that are in the referenced file don't appear here. And there's a tool that's super useful called the visibility tool in Vectorworks. In my custom workspace, I just hide it behind my selection tool because I'm always activating it with the V key. So I don't really need to click on it. I'm just using a keyboard shortcut. So with the visibility tool, you can see that you can make classes visible, layers visible, or objects visible, or you can make them invisible or grayed out. So in this case, we've got it in classes mode and we're making them invisible. And so if I hover over this viewport, you can see when there is a class that is indigenous to this file. For example, here it's giving me this little text block, right, near my cursor outlined in yellow. So this is the class massing A33 2D site roadway solid. So that's, I show my classes menu. That's roadway solid, right? So I can use the visibility tool to turn classes off in the viewport that are indigenous or exist in this file, like I just did, or I can make them visible, which case if I hover over someplace where there is a class, it'll sort of ghost it in for me and I can make it visible again, or I can make it gray, right? So now all of that's great and that's great. But in
So,
terms of, say,
Francois,
yep,
to make it visible, what is it you're doing, please? And invisible, is
I,
it punching those eyeball
yeah,
icons?
I
I see.
either have the black eyeball or the gray eyeball that makes it visible or invisible, or the X's make it invisible.
Got it. Thank you.
And you can do that to individual objects
Mhm.
in Vectorworks 2026, maybe even in 2025, classes and layers. So, um, but if I want to make, say, these spot elevations invisible in this viewport, I can't do it with the visibility tool in the sheet layer. What I need to do is I need to go back to the design layer where this reference is, right? And now I can either open the classes dialog box and hunt and peck for these classes, right? And turn them off that way. So, for example, I could zoom in over here. Let me cancel that. I could zoom in over here and go to classes. And that looks like an elevation. So maybe it's topo elevation. Or maybe it's topo elevation November 15th, 2024. You know, who knows? And then there's this preview button here in the bottom left. So I can just preview what that does without leaving the viewport. And so if I got the wrong one, I can cancel and not do it, right? So I can preview that. So I'll try topo elevation, preview that. Great, okay. But you can see if you're getting a file from a consultant, like a surveyor or a civil engineer, and you're not very familiar with their class structure, when would they use building one? When would they use building, who knows? So if I'm not familiar with their class structure, it might be a lot of trial and error to sort of do that. So I'll just cancel out of this. So again, I can use the visibility tool. And now, because I'm on the design layer with this referenced viewport, now as I hover over the object with my visibility tool cursor and I have the classes setting turned on or classes mode activated, it will tell me this is topo dash elevation, right? This is topo major. What's this? This is topo dimension. Let's turn that off. Great. Let's turn that off. Let's turn all these off. How about that? So super useful way to be able to turn off things that I don't even know uh, necessarily what their class is. So here's a hatch, right? I'll go ahead and turn that off. Here's some notes, right? And as I'm turning those things off, now if I go back to my sheet layer, look at that. Now the hatch is gone from this building. Now all of these spot elevations, the text for them anyway, are also turned off.
Hey, Francois,
So
I don't
yes,
mean to be really stupid here, but when you're turning these things off and on, I don't see you moving your cursor up to those eyeballs. So literally, what are you doing to do that?
my cursor is already, I'm in the visibility mode. Let me go
Yes.
back to my design layer. Here's the design layer.
Yeah.
Here's the visibility tool.
Tool. Yep.
I'm in classes mode.
I got that. Yep.
Okay. And do you see my cursor?
Yeah, I do.
Great. So I'm just going and I'm hovering over that. And do you see it's giving me the name of the class, topo dash under one?
Oh, I see. So you already have the X indicated. So when you click on that green thing, it's just going to make it go away.
Exactly.
That's what it is. Okay, that's the protocol. Thank you very much. That's all I needed.
Yep.
Francois,
Yeah.
isn't it a good practice when you bring in the reference file to go ahead and purge any unused classes at that point just to see? Because a lot of times these guys populate these things with, 400 classes, 395 of which are not applicable.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they do or sometimes they don't. Sure. Purging a class that's a good suggestion of a first thing to do, purging a
Right,
file. Classes, layers, symbols, I mean the whole shebang, right? Why have this big thing? Plus, they sent it to you, so if you accidentally delete something important, you can always get it again, right?
right,
But I mean, I've seen files, particularly from surveyors and civil engineers, that just use a ton of classes, like top of
right.
curb, bottom of curb, back of curb. It's like, everything that I would just draw in one pavement class, they've got like 20 different classes for. So doesn't always purging doesn't always solve the problem.
Gotcha.
Now, if I wanted, so the advantage to I don't know the advantage if it's an advantage, but the reality of importing a file from a consultant like this, right? And I'm just doing a whole lot of housekeeping over here. Just kind of I don't even know what I'm turning on. I don't really care because I'm just trying to illustrate this for you. Um, so the reality of having a file from a consultant or a collaborator or whatever who uses a very different class system than you is that you can only control the visibilities from the design layer viewport, not from the sheet layer. If I wanted to be able to control the visibilities from the sheet layer, I would need to essentially uh, include the consultant's classes in my document. And if I do that, then the visibility tool will work um, to a certain degree. Now, um, the primary advantage of having the same class structure in both the source file and the current file is that you can have this little checkbox checked, right? And so what that means is if I just whatever class visibilities I have in the viewport on the sheet layer will affect the what's being displayed from the design layer referenced viewport. But I don't necessarily want to have, the civil engineers 350 classes and the surveyors, you know, 3,000 classes and so on and so forth, right? So if I don't have that option or I don't want to, have this huge list of classes, then what I would need to do if I wanted to produce multiple
Please leave your message
drawings.
for 7.
Yeah, if you could mute yourself, that'd be great. So if I wanted to, for example, I wanted to have over on my architectural sheet set, maybe I want a site plan that has topos and nothing else. But then I have another site plan where I want to show utilities and building infrastructure, right? Because those require different class visibilities, what I would need to do over here on the sheet layer is I would need to have multiple instances of this viewport, each one with its own class setting. So I'm just going to drag and duplicate over here. And so on this one, I'll go to classes and I'll just turn all those classes on. And then on this one, I'll do the same thing, right? But I'll start turning some things off that I don't necessarily need. Maybe this hatch. And while I'm at it, maybe I'll turn off my topos. Okay. So I can have two different viewports. They're being sourced from the same file. They're being sourced from the same layer in that file. But one of them has one set of class visibilities and the other one has a different set of class visibilities. And that's how I would need to do it if I wanted to have, different types of site plans in my drawing set. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. I think that pretty much covers it on this one. I'm ready to move on to another problem if you all are. If you want me to review anything, you'll need to unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'm moving.
Personally, I'm ready to move on, and I thank you
Okay.
for reminding me of the power of the visibility tool, which I never use because I forget how powerful it is. So thank you.
Yeah, you should make a post-it note right now, write visibility
Yeah.
tool,
Yeah.
capital letter V, and stick it on your monitor because it is really, really useful in a lot of different ways, not just with design layer viewports.
I can see that that's a power tool for sure. Thank you.
Yep,
Same here.
yep, you bet. All right, I'm going to move on. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm not going to save it, and then I'll close that, and then I'm going to save that. All right. So here's another completely different project. I'm going to go over here to the design layer. And let's just go to, there's a lot going on in this model, but the part that I'm here, I'll use the visibility tool. Oh, everything's in the none class. So that's not going to help. Group that. All right. The thing that I'm really interested in here on this file is this little pad that has drainage on it. And this is built as a hardscape. And you can see it's this little kind of hipped roof looking thing. It's a pad that's got this nice um, drainage. So it crowns in the middle and it drains to the edges. And um, if we look at that hardscape and we, um, let's see, let's look at all of the, uh, uh, let's see the, no, this is all 2D stuff. I don't care about that. Mm-mm. No, I don't want to tell. Back to the settings. That does not. Maybe if I turn on all my classes. Yeah, there we go. For some reason, this one's giving me a little bit of trouble. I'm going to give it no fill. All right, so instead of giving me no fill. All right, so you can see there's a 5% slope on this hardscape, and the user wants to have a much lower slope than that, like 1%, 0.5%, or something like that. And try as we might, the hardscape object wasn't cooperating. So I'm going to go to a different file that I've tinkered with to sort of illustrate some of the limitations and kind of proper procedures for the hardscape. So here's this file where I've recreated this thing just in its own file. And you can see I've got 3 different versions of this. And I've got um, multiple views so that we can see these in elevation, wireframe, or shaded. So if I look at this hardscape, right, this is actually what this is built as a slab, not as a hardscape, but they function very similar ways. So if we go to our building tool set, there's a drainage tool right here. There's your slab drainage tool. Or if you're working with a hardscape or a slab, you can right click on it and you'll see that you'll get it. One of your options is edit drainage. Either way, you get the same result. You get this little tool palette where you can edit a drain, where you can create a drain, where you can connect 2 drains, and where you can create a valley. And so the procedure here was basically to create a slab or a hardscape and to insert a drain object at each of the 4 corners. But even though, if we click on the slab drainage settings, even though we had a default slope of 1% and a minimum slope of 0.5%, you can see that if I go back to my slab data, there we go. You can see that it's still giving me a steeper slope than 1%, clearly. Now, I can, on a slab or a hardscape, I can get a slope that is less than 5%, but only if I'm draining away from the edge towards the middle somewhere, right? So the procedure would be something like this. I'm going to go up here to do this. I'll just draw a rectangle. I'll make it 20 feet by 25 feet. And I'll just pop it over here. And then under the AEC menu, I'll create an object from shape. I can make it a hardscape or a slab. Okay. And then once again, I would activate this slab drainage tool here, or I could just right click and edit drainage either way. And I'm going to go ahead and insert a drain. And if I click on this setting, you can see that I'll set the default slope to 0.5 and the minimum slope of say 0.2. And that's all right. Oh, won't let me go below 0.5 on there. So I'll just hover over these corners, and when I do, Vectorworks will give me these dashed lines, and so it'll give me a 45-degree angle. So I can put that here, and you can see everything drains towards the middle. Or I can hover over this one and hover over that one and snap there. And then if I don't want this little cricket over here, which Vectorworks generates automatically, I'll just connect this drain to that drain. And there we go. We have this nice little slope. And then again, we can edit the drainage tool, and we can edit that and right click on that and edit the drain. And so I can give it an elevation of say -1 and edit the drain and give that one an elevation of -1. Okay. Doesn't like that. Wonder why that is.
Francois,
Well, Francois,
and you said
Yep.
minimum and maximum were both the same, which gives you no flexibility to have
Yeah,
drainage
that's
slope
that's
within a
that's
range.
that's a good point. Let's try to mess with that.
So later on,
Francois, the side said 0%, and the top and bottom triangle said 1% too. So I don't know if that's part of the issue.
other parts of the body, it wasn't that fit as the rest of the show. I gained like 9 pounds of classical material. So later on, there's more meat really to
Hey,
raw.
Sherry, can you mute yourself? Thanks.
Sorry.
Those are both at -1. Let me go ahead and delete that. And start over. Yeah, that has a 0. Right. So it's what it's doing is it leaves the drain at 0, but it raises the heights of the ones on the edge. And so now I'll connect them. Okay, there we go. So so the way the drainage on this works, I don't know for the life of me why the visibility of these is going. The way this works is that it essentially always assumes that the drain is at elevation 0 and that things that are going to the drain are higher. So in other words, it doesn't have a negative drain elevation. Everything else has to be higher than the drain. It has to be a positive value. But be that as it may, that is exactly the opposite of what I want to do, which is to have it slope to the edges, not create a little pond here in the middle for this chiller equipment. So there's a couple of ways that I can model this without using the drainage feature of slabs or hardscapes. One of those ways is with a roof, right? So here's another file, and you can see that I've got a roof face or actually it's a roof. So the way I made that is I just drew a 20-foot by 25-foot rectangle, made a roof from it. Here, let's go ahead and do that. Draw a rectangle, AEC, create objects from shape. Let's do a roof. I forgot that's its own, under AEC, that's its own command. Not sure why, but not roof face, sorry. Create roof. Okay, there you go. So I'll just give that a roof pitch of, say, 1%, 1 degree, and give it 0 overhang, and make it vertical. Vectorworks will argue with me, right? And it won't let me do it because the roof pitch is too low. So there's a limitation on Vectorworks roof. I think 2% is the shallowest I can be. Try that again. There we go. So it'll let me do a 2-degree roof, but it won't let me go any shallower than 2 degrees. I misspoke earlier. I said percent, I meant degrees. So, so the way that I can fix that, if I want to do this with a roof, is take that roof object and ungroup it. And then it creates 4 individual roof faces. And while a roof object has a minimum pitch of 2 degrees, a roof face can have a much lower pitch than that. I'll just give it, here's an angle of 2 degrees. I'll just make it 1. I'll hit return, 1. So there it is. So a 1 degree pit angle is acceptable for a roof face, but it's not acceptable for a roof object. So I can just go to all 4 of these roof faces after creating them and change the angle to 1. In fact, a roof face can have any slope at all. Doesn't have a minimum slope. There's probably a maximum slope of like 85 degrees or something like that. But I could even have a slope of 0 on that. So if I really wanted something really shallow, right, then I could just set the angle to say 0.5 degree. And that's exactly what I've done over here, right? So if you want to achieve this with a roof object rather than with a slab or hardscape, you could just create whatever roof pitch you wanted. It kind of doesn't matter. Ungroup the roof object into 4 individual roof faces, and then change the pitch of the roof faces to be the desired slope. So that's one way of addressing this problem of a low-pitched drainage slab using the roof tool. But then back to this original file, there is a way of doing this with the with a hardscape or with with a hardscape, and that's to use a different kind of hardscape tool. So let me go ahead and create this again, and this time it is create objects from shape, hardscape. Okay. So there are lots of different kinds of hardscape categories in terms of how they modify sites. So I have no site model in this file, so I don't really care about site modification. But what I want is I want an aligned hardscape type. And what that does is it will conform to a site model if there's a site model, or the site model will conform to it. That's not really relevant to what I'm doing here, but yeah. And so when I do that, is it right click? Yeah. If I right click on a site on a hardscape that is of the aligned type, and I right click on it, you can see that I have edit surface modifiers down here. And here I am. Let me get out of this visualization mode. So kind of ghosts in the profile of the hardscape. And this is a special little menu that only gives me these options inside the hardscape to modify its slope. I can pan, zoom, or select. I can essentially insert a stake, so define an elevation, or I can add a grade tool. I find the grade tool to be less handy for this kind of application. So I'll just go ahead and insert a stake. And I'll just put it here and then move it down, I don't know, 5 feet. Yep. And duplicate it and move it up 10 feet. And so I can give these stakes an elevation, a Z elevation, let's say 2 inches. And then I can insert a stake. And I'm wondering why it's not letting me snap to that. That's kind of weird. That should work. Okay. And then I'll exit. Yeah, it did not like that. Let's set surface modifiers again. Work fine over here. What do? Let's look at these. I've got 4 stakes. Each one has at each corner. And then I've got 2 stakes over here with a Z of 1. Well, why is it doing it for this one, but not that? All right, I'm stumped. Any ideas?
What if you gave the corners of like a 1 inch elevation? Would that make any difference?
Yeah, but
Looks like you have
it's
a
working
zero
fine over here.
in the middle. Yeah.
What's that?
That zero elevation that's in the lower right, not in the corner, but between the corner and the middle. Is that what's screwing you up?
Maybe.
No,
I
not
mean,
there's one in the middle of the pad.
yeah, these are all the stakes. There isn't one in the middle of the pad.
When you're in the other view, it shows one.
Yeah, I know. It's
Yeah.
weird. It's showing me like one here. I'm going to delete that and start over. Make it aligned. Edit surface modifiers.
What does that mean aligned? Aligned with what?
What align means is that it will align itself to a site model. Which isn't really relevant right now because there is no site model. I'm using, I'm using the hardscape for kind of a different purpose. That has a Z. Huh. So that is weird. Look, it's giving me a very strange, that should be a 10-foot X and 12.5-foot Y.
I've been reading in the forums that there's a bug in the Hardscape tool.
Oh, great. Uh, that's good. That's good. I got another bug coming up. So this is weird. It's almost like it's at a different scale. All right, well, let's see what happens if we do that. This is very strange.
Looks like you found
Well,
it.
I'm gonna have to save this file because here it's placing these stakes at some location that is outside the boundary of the hardscape itself. Not sure why it's doing that,
It's
but
as if it's as if they're independent of this hardscape altogether.
yeah. Well, maybe I can just move the hardscape to the snap points here. Let's just reshape the hardscape.
Could it be a function of the alignment with the site model?
But there is no site model. This is a blank file that has no site model
So why would you do it aligned then?
because that's the only way that I can insert a stake object into
Ah,
a
okay, thanks.
site modifier. Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's just a workaround. I mean, it's really hard to tell with this shaded,
Francois,
and it's
can
such a
you
slow.
cheat? Can you cheat and make the two center stake objects like 10% so it's easy to see?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like 10 inches or 12 inches or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, not sure why it drifted, but yeah. So basically, the moral of the story is if you want a really low pitched slab to drain to the perimeter, your your two viable options in my mind are roof faces, which you can sort of quickly generate with a roof tool and ungroup it and then modify the slope of the roof faces, or a hardscape that is aligned with stake objects inserted to modify it. Those are really the two kind of most viable options.
Sounds like you need to give Derek a hard time, a really hard time.
It
Tell him
it
Jeff told you to do it.
yeah, it does seem like I think Jeff is saying Vectorworks needs to up its game on this tool, and I would agree with that. My situation is frequently I will use a tool that I have a working knowledge of, but barely, and on a project, and then the project will go dormant or something else will be happening, and it will be a year later that I come back to it. And if it's really complicated and finicky, gosh, it makes it really difficult for me. And I just always beg for, can these tools be made as intuitive as possible? And this tool so far is anything but that.
Yeah, yeah. I can't say I disagree. All right, well, onward.
Can I ask one question on this?
Sure, sure, of course.
If you use your roof technique, let's say it's a slab or hardscape, and you're inserting it into a site plan, will a roof, you know how you can change the drainage of a site plan by inserting it into a site? Will a roof do that on your site model?
No, a roof won't modify. If you want to modify your site model with your um, slab, I'm using the term slab generically, with your paving, right? You really need to use a hardscape object.
And I mean, I've struggled with the drainage on hardscapes and slabs and often just given up because I run into issues like you are. Is there some reason that it's the way it is, or is it just a poorly designed tool that, I mean, because it's been like this way for 10 years or something. Is there some advantage to this methodology that they have that I'm not seeing, or is it just not good?
Well, I don't know how I'd characterize it, but I would say that it is the way that it is. Um, um, I don't know why. I don't know why the tool has the multiple options that it has. I assume that it's out of a desire to be flexible.
Francois, I
Yeah.
I don't mean to complicate uh, this conversation for you or for anybody else on this call, but I am recalling that when we looked at this surrounding the Austin History Center a year or more ago, uh, there were some slightly different approaches that seemed to be successful. And honestly, I can't remember what they are, which goes
Yeah, it was
back to the
using
first comment I just made.
it was the stake insertion mode, which is what I just showed.
Uh, okay, I uh, I'll have to review that. I remember it being different, but I don't remember why. And this is goes back to my first statement, which is when tools are not intuitive, I almost have to relearn them if I haven't used them in a number of years. And in this case, that's the truth.
Well,
So
I
anyway,
find the stake insertion mode to be pretty much the most intuitive. So
yeah,
I've got those. I'll just go ahead and raise these to say, 24 and say 18 inches. Because I can wrap my head around spot elevations, and then it'll make that shape for me. And it'll warp however it needs to warp in order to hit all of the points that I've told it to hit. Right. So there's a point, there's a point, there's a point, there's a lower point, and then there are these points here. Again, I can edit the surface modifiers and go to this one and give it an elevation of give it an elevation of say -12 and exit.
this technique certainly does uh, fit with the basic understanding for me, and I'll bet everybody on this call for how these objects should behave, which is to say, you put a point in there, and the object should suck up to that point as if it's a tent pole.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's
that'll,
exactly what it's doing.
yeah,
I mean,
and that,
that's sort of my preferred way of, but typically,
yeah,
right, if you've got a hardscape, it's like you've got to get from a stair landing at the outside edge of your building, and you have to get down to a parking lot or whatever. So this kind of stake object insertion mode, I think is the way to go. But maybe there's a compelling reason to um, do it a different way, depending on your situation. All right, I'm going to move on.
Thank you.
I got two more here. So um, here's here's one completely unrelated to uh, to hardscapes or slabs. So um, here's a window, uh, and the weird thing about this window, and this is flat out a bug. The weird thing about this window is if I look at it in 3D, right, it has no stool. The exterior is to the left and the interior is to the right. Right. So it's well behaved in uh 3D, but in 2D, it's giving me this stool. And if I look at the window settings and I go to the still um, setting for the window, you can see that I don't have a stool included. I just don't. And the overall sill depth is 7 inches, and that's measured from the back of the sash uh, towards the nose of the sill, right? So everything's correct here, but for whatever reason, Vectorworks is in 2D only generating this artifact. I've logged it as a bug, and so that I'm pretty confident that they will fix it. In the meantime, the workaround that I've found is uh, that instead of creating a timber sill or a wooden sill, which, as you can see in this diagram, extends underneath the sash, somehow the bug forces that sill to continue to extend to the inside of the wall. Instead, choose a masonry sill, which, admittedly, this is not, and change your dimensional parameters, the lip, um, the keep, which is this horizontal dimension here, the rise, which is number 3, that's that little drop off right there. Set all of those to be the dimensions that you would want for your timber sill. The one thing that it won't do correctly is extend that sill underneath the sash. So when you take a section through that, it's not going to display properly. But you can see that once I give it that configuration, it's correct in top plan view, and it's correct in 3D view. It's just not going to be correct in section. You can see it doesn't extend underneath the window like this, timber sill does. Oh, there's somebody in the chat. Where are you, chat? There we go.
Francois, what if you included the stool on the inside face, but just made it 0 in terms of its extension and such?
I think I tried that,
Oh, did you? Okay.
but I don't remember. So let's try it. Yeah, let's go ahead and include a stool, but then give it a stool nosing of 0 and a stool lip of 0. Nope.
You you may want to make it like 3/4 of an inch thick, but have the extensions. I mean, I don't know. I'm just
I mean, yeah, sure. I'm I'm game to give it a try. I'll even try like 0.01. Sometimes that's the trick, is to make things not 0, but teensy tiny. Yeah, it's still showing this artifact. Hey, Stephanie, you had a question in the chat about corrugation.
Uh,
Yeah, and excuse the way I sound. I've got a horrible cold. But in the first, when you were looking at the little slab that you were creating with the drainage, there was a
Yeah.
corrugated metal screen wall. And I know this is way off topic, but I was wondering how you modeled the corrugated metal. Was that with like a repeat element tool, or was that with a wall tool, or is that just a simple extrude?
This is Al's file. I think these Al, how did you model those?
Those are simple extrudes, and they are models. Excuse me, they are symbols, and I created a 2D plan representation as well. But they are symbols, so they can just be endlessly repeated.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
it's an extrusion
Yeah,
is the short answer.
yeah, and then turn into a symbol so that it also has a 2D representation in plan.
Makes sense. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
All right. Uh, okay, so I was actually unaware of this bug. So thanks for uh, bringing that to my attention. And then the last one that I have today is there was a question about door handing. And so I have a super simple door schedule here and a super simple file with just one door in it. And so the question was, how do I display the door handing um, in my door schedule? So let's go ahead and double click on that. And I'm under, let's see, there it is over here. I am, sorry, showing my database headers. So that little stack of disk icon, my database menu, I'm showing my database headers. So that gives me access to the scripting that happens all along in row 3. And then I just have, so the syntax, that's the word I'm looking for populating a report or a worksheet is equals, open parentheses, and then the criteria for the object. In this case, it's door dot width, right? So um, one way to, you can't possibly know all of these, especially when they start to have names like swing hinge side, right, for the handing. Um, One way of doing that is to use this little FX button, this little function button, and insert criteria, and then go to custom, and then go to field value. And now it'll show you all of the fields for the objects that are in the file. So here's a door object. And so you can, you could type hand, but there's no handing command. So you could type swing, right? And here it will give you the uh, swing hinge side and hit OK. And you can see now it's added all this extraneous text, the left and all of that. So I'm just going to edit and clean all that up. Make sure that I have an opening and a closing parentheses, single quote mark door dot single quote mark swing hinge side. And then it will go ahead and give you that. So that, for example, if I click on this door and I swing it that way, and then right click and recalculate selected worksheet, then it will show the handing as Right. So there's all sorts of things that you can basically any parameter that's in a door or a window, you can go ahead and add that to your schedule if you so desire. I'm always a little afraid to show handing on my schedule. I'd rather the somebody else take responsibility for ordering the door.
Well, and
Perhaps.
the door guys will actually have, LH, L or whatever. I mean, whether or not it's swinging in or out, in
Right.
addition to left and right. So yeah, I would avoid it.
Yeah.
I stopped
Now,
showing
if
it
I,
on my schedule because the different manufacturers call a left a right and a right and a left. It depends on whether you're on the push side, the pull side, the latch side, the hinge side.
exactly. Yeah. And it's also different um in different countries, right? Um so if we wanted to show whether it was in or out, right? So I could go ahead and uh add a column here and I'll just call this swing, right? And I can just copy this and whoops, and go in here and I'll just paste it and I'll just delete that. And again, insert my criteria and start typing field value and then start typing swing. All right, so now there's swing direction. Okay. And so now it's trying to build a logical argument like filter out swing direction in or out, but I just want it to display the swing direction. So that would be equals open parentheses, single quote door dot, single quote swing direction, close parentheses. And there it is. It's in and right.
So, Francois, may I jump in? Um,
Yeah.
so this works well if it's in, let's just say this is an exterior door. And this was my question, so I'm not ashamed to admit my confusion here. But if the door is opening inward, the hand works correctly. But if it's an exterior door opening outward, it doesn't. You can't call that the hand, because that would it's the opposite. It works for an inward swinging door, but if so, the hinge side looking from the outside, which is typical in this case, would be, well, I don't know which is the interior and exterior on yours.
Yeah, this is an outswinging door. Here's the wall direction. The wall is
Where,
going from left to right. So bottom is the left, hence the outside. I'm not sure why swing is indicating. Maybe I need to recalculate that. Yeah, the
can you
swing
click on
is
the door
incorrect.
click on the door and show us that that's that's so that's inward swinging.
Isn't the arrow showing outward?
Inward. See, the swing is in, as you're showing correctly, and the hand is right. But if you flip the door so that it's going outward,
But this is the interior. Now it's swinging in.
now it's the interior.
Yeah, now that's swinging
But
in. Now it's swinging out.
no,
Does an outswinging door not swing to the exterior?
an out swinging door swings to the exterior. Yes.
Okay, well, where my cursor is, the bottom of the wall, that is out on this wall definition. I even have some siding on it.
If you
On the inside, I even have a baseboard, although it's got zero height.
can we see? Can you click on the door and show the info object info palette?
Sure. If I can get it to stick. Yeah.
Interior, you have the interior is the left side of the wall.
All right. So I'll make the interior the right side of the wall. There we go. So the interior is the right side of the wall. It's an outswinging door.
Now, can we,
And now this should be a left hinge. This should be a left-handed swing, right?
right, so now it's showing a right-handed swing, I mean, a right-handed door.
You're right. Hmm. Yep, yep. Wonder why that is. All right. That's another bug I
Problem.
get to report.
It says hinge side right. Can you change that in the info object info palette?
Yeah, maybe that's the problem
No,
is that,
it is hinge side right, because you check the hinge side from the outside. So if the outside is on the right, but it's an outswinging door, it's a left-handed door.
so my schedule's incorrect because I'm labeling that um as handedness when really that's the hinge side.
Exactly.
But what you want is you want to show handedness, which is always going to be opposite the hinge side, right?
On an outswinging door.
Uh-huh.
So I like to show the hinge side and the hand and the swing out. I tried to put another column in showing the hand, and it's really only for hardware. If you use a lever, paddle.
Sure.
If the inside and outside face of the wall is defined by the wall definition itself, why that when you select the door, why in the object info palette can you toggle it back and forth? Shouldn't it already be picking that up from the door definition or the wall definition? Shouldn't it already know which side is the inside and the outside? What under what circumstance would you want to change that to the opposite?
Well, what if you have an interior wall?
Okay, then wouldn't that be irrelevant then, whether it's which side of the wall is considered exterior and interior?
Well, they still do handing at the door manufacturer for interior doors or exterior.
Yeah.
I guess this is all the more reason to leave the handing off your schedule.
All right, well, let's try this. So if H3 equals not sure quite. I'm off the top of my head. I might have to think about how I would construct an if statement so that if it's an in-swinging door, it doesn't flip the handing. Hmm.
Francois.
Yeah.
This is kind of on topic, but a little bit off topic. Is there a good resource where I can go to learn all of this syntax stuff that you're doing? Because I get really I mean, I know how to find things like in records, but I don't know how to properly put them into a worksheet so that it does what it's supposed to do. Like I don't know about the parentheses and dots and single. I don't know any of that stuff.
Yeah. So I sort of have taught myself that sort of to the extent that I know it. Just at looking at how Vectorworks builds reports out of the box and
Yeah.
just kind of copying that syntax.
Okay.
Um, it's also similar to how Excel works, but not exactly.
Well,
So
I never learned Excel, so
yeah,
that's one of my problems. I never learned spreadsheets.
Y-
But all the
yeah,
time, I see people all the time just saying, "Well, just add this and create this," and it seems simple until I try to do it myself. And
yeah. You got to be careful because if your syntax is off, you will sometimes most of the time it'll just give you an error, but sometimes you'll just create a formula that gives you a wrong answer and you think it's right because hey, it's a formula.
yeah, it fills in
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure off the top of my head how to like do an if statement to flip the handing. I'd have to think about that. I wish I had a clean answer right now.
It seems that Vectorworks could just add a record field for handing and write their little algorithm internally instead of having us to try and figure that out, I would think.
Oh, well, for sure. But you probably want to schedule, next week and you don't want to wait for Vectorworks 2027. So I'd love
Right.
to figure out a solution. Like,
Sure, in an ideal world. But
yeah,
I,
anyway, yeah, that's a good one. Let's see. Guess I could try this. I don't think that's going to be right. So if I swing it in and then recalculate, is that right?
no, the hand is now a right hand door.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's not. All right, I'm gonna have to play with this. I'm sorry. I wish I had knew exactly how to do it, but um, it's probably going to involve a, some nested if statements, and I'd have to sort of pencil it out to get it right. So I'll get back to you.
Thank you for looking at that.
Okay, so I've noodled around with it and think I have a solution to showing the handing on the door schedule. So on the bottom here is a little diagram that shows the how commonly handing is represented, right? Pretty straightforward stuff. And then just to kind of give myself a test case, what I've done is in the same wall that I had before, I've placed 4 instances of the door that correspond to the handing diagram below. And then I've numbered each door 1 through 4, left to right, so that they can show up in the door schedule correctly and I can check my work. So here's what I did in the door schedule to make this work. You can see that if the swing is out and the hinge is to the left, it's showing a left hand reverse, LHR. And if the hinge is left and it's in swinging, then it's a left hand and right hand. So they correspond to the doors below. Again, just so I can check my work. So let's open this door schedule and I can show you how I did this. So I did 3 things to make this work. One is I used nested if statements, as I was suggesting earlier. The second thing that I did is concatenate some cell results. And the third thing that I did is I hid a column. So those are all useful little tricks. So you'll notice, if you're astute, that I've got columns A through K, but column J is missing. Well, it's really there, but I've just set the width to 0. So I'm just going to grab these columns, I and K, and you can see that when I stretch them, J appears, right? So the first thing is over here in column H, I've got the statement door dot swing direction. So that's what gives me out or in. And then in column I, the hinge, the syntax here is door swing hinge side. So that's left or right. And so what I want is I want to be able to put those together into a single term so that we can do an if statement. Now there may be a better way to do this, but this is my brute force method. So in this column, J, I've used the concatenation command, C-O-N-C-A-T, concat. And what that does is it takes the result from column H and the result from column I, and it mashes them together into a single word, out left, in right, out right, like that. Very straightforward, right? So now that I have a single cell to look at over here in column K, I can do my nested if statements. So if it tells it to look at J3, so that's this column over here. So if J3 is out left, then display LHR, right? But then there are other possible conditions, right? So then instead of, so then if it's not LHR, that's what happens after the second column, then I have another if statement within this if statement. So that's why they're nested. So now if J3 is in left, that's this one, then display LH, right? I'm telling it if J3 is in left, then LH. So if it's not LHR and it's not LH, then if J3 is in right, display RH. And finally, if it's not in right, then display RHR. So that's how the nested if statement works. And then there you go. And then I just take this column J because I don't actually want to see that in my schedule, but I need the data that's there. And I just drag J and I make it a width of 0 and close my door schedule. And for all intents and purposes, it just looks like it's showing swing and hinge and handing. Now, if I wanted to, I could also hide the hinge column, I guess, but I really don't need to. So there you go. That's how I solved that problem. And if others have a better solution, I'd love to see it in the comment section on YouTube.
Let's see. Oh, there's something else in the chat. Let's see. I have an M1 Mac Studio with 64 gigs of RAM. You need more RAM.
On the website, I think they say minimum for an M1 is 32 gigs, and I have 64, and that's you can't put any more in it, and the Mac Studio isn't modifiable.
Yeah.
That's why when it came out, I got it with the max RAM it came with.
Right, right. How are you, where is it slowing you down specifically?
Well, I had an apartment building that we're doing some repairs to the balcony railings and support posts, and it only had about 15 doors per floor, and just going through one floor and trying to select multiple doors, just selecting doors, it was lagging way behind. I mean, that was just one example, and it was a small project. And I thought to myself, I can't do this project with 2026. I went back to 2025 because just the most simple basic tasks seem to just bog it down.
Yeah, is it specifically, are you seeing more of that with like anything involving doors and walls?
Well, I haven't experimented much past that with 2026, but I think the next project that I start out of the gate, I'm gonna try 2026. And again, it's a small 2,000 square foot TI, and I would think that such a small scale project would be no problem. I mean, with
Sure.
2025, I've gone through and done 50,000 square foot
Mhm.
TIs and modeled the whole complete thing in 3D, and nothing was sluggish at all.
Yeah, yeah. So Vectorworks is changing how they're rendering walls under the hood from 2025 to 2026, and I'm wondering um, if that might not be kind of the underlying problem.
When you say rendering walls, you mean even in 2D plan view?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, how it generates the geometry that is displayed on the screen is that's being done differently.
Yeah, I notice all my
in-
components on my wall don't show up unless a certain checkbox in the info palette's checked, and then it'll show them. I have a feeling that has to do with the cutting plane, which I have not played with since I've been using Vectorworks since 1990 when it was mini.
yeah, right. Yep, yep. Uh, so um, so that might be the issue, but in terms of how to address a solution for your problem, um, have you played with your display settings?
No,
So what am I here? Vectorworks
I've got a dual monitor.
preferences.
Is the wide aspect ratio curved monitor.
Yeah. Um, so under your Vectorworks preferences, um, you can try toggling vector caching off and on, accelerate graphics off and on, enabling anti-aliasing. So try these three, see if adjusting any of these three settings from however you have it helps at all.
Okay, I had not even thought of that. I forgot all about those settings.
Yeah. Um,
I'll
give
let you
give
know.
that a go.
I will. I'll let you know how it works. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Hopefully that'll fix it. And if not, follow up with me.